Okay, so what is in my camera bag 2025? Now you're probably thinking, Oscar, we're in the middle of 2025. Actually, in fact, we're almost towards the end of 2025. So why are you making this video? Well, I've been using the same kind of camera gear for the past few years and nothing's really changed. And it's only as of recent that I've actually made some significant changes to my camera bag, to my setup, to my gear. So I thought this video might be useful to some of you. And I thought I could give you guys some top tips as to the gear that I'm now properly using on a consistent basis. So first of all, the camera bag. So this right here is the Lowepro ProTactic 450 AW Mark II. Now that name in itself is just a huge mouthful, and I definitely think Lowepro should consider changing that name. But straight off the bat, this is the camera bag that I use for all of my traveling. No matter where I'm going, I will always use this bag, and it's a bag that I've been using consistently for the past 4 or 5 years now, and that hasn't really changed. So rest assured, this is definitely my favorite camera bag to date. One of my favorite things about it is actually on the bottom here, you've got this like all-weather cover. So let's say you're on a shoot, you're doing some street photography or you're up a mountain and suddenly it just starts raining. You can pull out this cover and you can just pull it over your backpack and you can just be rest assured and have that peace of mind that your gear isn't gonna get wet. And it just adds an extra layer of protection to the already pretty solid and durable bag. So yeah, this is something that I advocate for highly. Big thumbs up from me, and I don't really see many other camera bags having such a feature. Another quick thing actually whilst I look at it is this little clip here. This is a camera clip from a brand called PGY Tech. I think it's called the Beetle clip or the Beetle clamp or something like that. Now, if you asked me like 3 or 4 years ago, I would say, nah, those camera clips are a waste of time. I used to have the Peak Design one, which is actually 2 plates that go either side of a camera strap. But for me, they just kept coming apart and I just couldn't risk putting my camera on that. Now this one here is actually a new system and it's a locking system, and it's such a good locking system that I just don't have to worry about it coming off and therefore my camera just dropping onto the floor in the middle of the streets. You can just have your camera sat here on your strap whilst you're out and about shooting. Let's say you don't want to put it in your bag, you don't want to miss a moment. You can just have it here, have your hands free, and then when something does happen, you can literally just unclip it and get your shot. So I definitely would advocate now for camera clips, specifically this one here. So sometimes I will keep my camera up the top here. You've got a little pocket here to keep lots of stuff. I always, top tip, I always keep about 2 spare SD cards because there's been too many times now where I've been caught out. Even recently I was caught out, went out to do a shoot and I just didn't have an SD card in my camera. So I keep one up here in this bit. Up here I keep things like spare batteries when I'm out and about on a shoot. We've got like an Allen key, we got a sensor cleaning swab. We've even got some paracetamol because you just never know when you're gonna get caught out and getting a mad headache. Now, inside the main compartment here, it opens up from the back like this. And as you can see inside, there is a tremendous amount of space. And up here, you've got your laptop sleeve, which is literally just like that. That is such a good little system there. Up here, you can keep documents, you can keep ND filters. I actually carry around an international driving license with me, so that it's just always in there whenever I need it. I always carry a little microfiber cloth because the amount of times that I see people just using like their t-shirt, wiping their lenses, I'm just like, why would you do that to your lovely cameras, your lovely lenses? It just doesn't make sense to me. And there's no harm in carrying one of these in your bag. So I would always just chuck it in your bag. You never know when you're gonna need it. All of these little things rip out, so you can organize it in any way you want, depending on what your needs are, depending on the size of your gear, your lenses, whatever it is. This is 100% my favorite backpack for travel. All right, so I actually want to talk about another backpack because the Lowepro one I use only for traveling, and now this one here, this is the Douchebag, the backpack. The brand is actually known as DB Journey now. They used to be called Douchebags, but this is basically my everyday carry backpack that I use for things like street photography or stuff where I don't want to bring a huge amount of things with me. One of my favorite things about this bag is that it doesn't actually look like a camera bag. I think that's super important because you don't really want people to know that you're carrying a significant amount of expensive stuff in your backpack. It actually opens up from the front. Now this, I'm not the biggest fan of this because let's just say you're out doing some street photography in the middle of London and you want to get a lens out of your bag. You've got to put the bag sort of on the side which touches your back, basically on the floor, in order to access your gear. And I think personally that's a little bit impractical. I don't really like the idea of doing that, but there's nothing you can really do about it. Now, within this backpack, you get this little insert here. So this is actually within the bag, and annoyingly, you have to buy it separately. I don't really like the fact that you've got to buy the backpack and then you've got to buy the inserts. I'd rather just buy something that is just all encompassing. Again, similar sort of thing. You can arrange the bag any way you want, but this is basically my everyday carry backpack for street photography and things where I don't really want to bring a lot of lenses. Now, the actual camera that I use. So for so many years, I used to use this here. This is the Sony a7 III. However, about a year and a half ago, I want to say, or maybe even 2 years ago now, I decided that it was time to put this thing to rest. I used it so much and the screen actually got to the point where it didn't even work. It was that sort of worn into the ground. So I naturally upgraded to this right here, which is the Sony a7 IV. And I've definitely noticed so many improvements to this thing compared to the previous camera. First of all, the autofocus is just far superior. Also, you've got those extra megapixels. The Sony a7 III was a 24 megapixel camera, whereas this is a 33 megapixel, and you might not think that's much of a difference on paper, but trust me, when it comes to editing and when you're wanting to just to crop into those images that little bit more, that honestly makes a huge difference. One of the main things that I love about these camera systems is the fact that they're basically a hybrid shooter. Yes, they're unbelievable for photos, but on the other hand, they're also extremely powerful and versatile for video. I believe you can shoot up to 4K 60 frames a second, 10-bit, which is just absolutely insane for something so small and something with such great photo capabilities. Another thing that you can just see on the bottom here is my little tripod plate. I've actually screwed it into the bottom of the camera just so that it's always there, whether I want to clip it into my PGY Tech clip or whether I would just want to clip it into my tripod. It's something that's always there. Sony a7 IV, my favorite camera so far. Also, whilst we're on the subject of cameras, I also use the Sony ZV-E1, which is actually what I'm using to shoot this video and what I use to shoot all of my video content across my channels. It is honestly such an unbelievable camera. I wish I could have it in my hands right now, but it's so small and so powerful. But yeah, that is also just another camera that I use, and is what I use to film all of my YouTube videos that you see on this channel. Okay, so real quick pause. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you guys about something that I've been working on for the past few months now, but essentially I've been shooting in London for the past 7 years now, so it's safe to say that I know the city pretty well. And in that time I've shot in a lot of good locations, but I've also shot in a lot of bad locations. So that is why I decided to put together a guide with over 120 of the very best photography locations in and around the city. Within this guide you'll find things such as what gear to bring to each location, the times I recommend to visit each location so that you can maximize your chances of getting it all to yourself. Also within this guide there's a massive Google map with every single location pinpointed so that you can basically see all the locations together. Now this guide is something that I wish I had when I first started doing photography. It literally has so many gems jam-packed into one guide so that you can maximize your time when you're out and about shooting in the city. The feedback on the guide has been unreal so far, so if you think this might be of interest to you, I'll leave a link in the description below. But yeah, back to the video. All right, so lenses. Now this is the Sony 16 to 35mm f2.8 Mark II. Now the main difference between this one and the previous version is its weight. In my opinion, the weight of gear is honestly so important, especially whilst you're traveling, especially whilst you're carrying it all in your back. It honestly makes a huge difference. Also, the autofocus is absolutely just unbelievable on these lenses, especially when you pair it over a Sony body. It's just literally lightning quick. Now, personally, I love using this lens for street photography, or more specifically when I'm shooting in a city environment, especially when I need like a really wide lens to basically capture that whole sort of urban architecture. The 16 to 35mm is honestly perfect for that. It's also a really good vlogging lens, having the ability to stay at f2.8 continuously, whether you're at 16, 24, 35, whatever it is, it will always stay at 2.8 or whatever you need above that. And that is just such a good asset to have. It always ensures that you have a nice, crispy sort of bokeh when you're filming your videos. All right, next lens is this one here. This is the 24 to 70 f2.8mm Mark II from Sony. Again, this is the second generation of this lens. The previous version was a lot bigger, also a lot heavier. This is basically just the run and gun, all in one. If someone said to you, you can only bring one lens, in my opinion, you should always pick the 24 to 70. So whether you're shooting portraits, whether you're shooting sport, whether you're shooting street photography, this lens is pretty much just the all-encompassing lens. And it is just something that basically lives on my camera. Honestly, these G Master lenses are just absolutely unreal. So having that as well as the 16 to 35mm is just unreal. The next lens I want to talk about is this one here. Now, this is just the absolute beast. That is the 70-200mm f2.8 Mark II from Sony. Again, this is the second generation of this lens. The previous one I did have, and it was just honestly exceptionally heavy compared to this lens here. This thing is so light, and Sony do such a great job of just improving their lenses to the next generation in terms of just reducing their weight. I don't know what they take out of them to make them perform better and also be lighter, but this is definitely an example of that. You've got the lens hood here, which obviously comes out to make an even bigger lens, and honestly this thing just looks so freaking cool whenever you're out shooting. This lens has so many benefits and so many uses. I struggle to take it off my camera body whenever I'm out and about shooting, especially when you're out in the mountains or doing some hiking or just in a nice scenic environment. There's so many things that you can do with this lens, and also the compression that you can get at f2.8 zooming into like 200mm is honestly unreal. This lens is such a tank, and I just love using it. All right, now the final lens that I want to talk about here is actually a lens from a company called Voigtlander. And it is a 10mm hyper wide prime lens. Now this thing is just, it has its uses. I haven't actually used it that much, but the 10mm focal length is honestly just so cool and so different. The jump from 16mm down to 10mm is honestly crazy. It's also a very small lens. The only drawbacks of this lens actually is the fact that it's manual. It doesn't have autofocus, so more often than not I'll just stick it like close enough to infinity focus and just pray whatever I'm shooting is in focus. But I know that a brand called Laowa have just released a f2.8 autofocus 10mm lens with zero distortion as well. So I am considering upgrading to that, but for now I'm using the 10mm lens. But to be honest, these three lenses are just always in my camera bag whenever I'm going whenever I'm traveling basically. So yeah, that covers you from 16 all the way to 200mm. So that is basically all my camera gear, all of my lenses. So yeah. So the next thing that I want to talk about is drones. Now, honestly, drones are some of my favorite things to play with. And this one specifically is my current favorite drone. This is the DJI Mini 4 Pro. Time and time again, it finds its way into my camera backpack, mainly because it is literally so small and light. Honestly, the controller is actually bigger than the drone, but honestly, when this thing is up in the sky, I've honestly never really had to worry about the wind or anything like that with it being so light. And believe me, I've flown this thing in really high winds, and it's managed, and it's been able to get me the shots that I need basically. This thing is ultralight. It comes in at 249 grams. Now pair this here with the controller that has the screen on it. Now traditionally you just used to have to clip your phone into the controller, and there were so many times where this used to bug me out, whether your phone ran out of battery or whether you got a phone call, and like there's been so many times where I've had to hold the drone controller up to my ear whilst I'm literally trying to fly the thing. But having this screen, which is honestly such a crystal clear screen, built into the controller is honestly just a massive game changer. And I'd honestly highly consider getting the controller, the smart controller, that has the screen built into it. Yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite drones that DJI have ever made. Now, moving on to our little action cameras and things like that. This is the DJI Osmo 360. It only recently came out. For the longest time, I'd been using the Insta360 cameras, and those things were honestly unreal. But I did have the chance to use this the other day, and at night especially, this thing seemed so crisp and unreal and sharp. And it comes with this little pole here, which you can just easily clip the camera to and just extend it like that. And yeah, it's such a cool little thing. Yeah, this is the DJI Osmo 360, and yeah. I also have here the DJI Action 5 Pro. This is basically like their GoPro equivalent. It's their action camera, and in my opinion, it's actually better than a GoPro. I've used the GoPros for many years now, but these things are just honestly unreal, especially at nighttime. Like the quality you can get is unreal. And again, it can just clip in via this little magnetic mount, which they've done such a good job. It's quick release, so you can just quickly pop it out like that. This is what I use to shoot all of my sort of POV angle street photography videos. Again, of course, it shoots in 4K 120 frames if you'd ever need that. So yeah, these two little cameras are some of my favorite things to play with. They're just such great little tools. You can just throw them in your camera bag. They take up no space at all, and they're things that I usually always carry with me whenever I'm out and about. So the next camera that I want to talk about is this one here. This is the Nikon F3. It actually came out about 45 years ago, which is almost as late as this video is coming out. But honestly, this camera is just such a lovely thing to use. It's such a throwback to use, and it really makes you think about photography. Not this camera specifically, but just film cameras in general. You really have to think through every single shot, because you only have a limited amount of film that you can basically use in one roll. If you haven't got a film camera or you haven't got into film, I would definitely consider it. And this is, I think these are quite expensive now, I can't lie. I remember I bought this on Facebook Marketplace about 6 or 7 years ago for like just over £100, which at the time I thought was really expensive, but these things have literally gone up like 3-4 times the price. So I'm glad I bought that when I did. And yeah, Nikon F3, big thumbs up. This is basically my favorite part of the video because it means I get to talk about these next cameras here, and these are my Sony Cybershots. I actually have quite a few more, I just haven't got them out, but the Sony Cybershots are basically digital cameras, and I carry them with me pretty much all the time. Like, they're so small, and you can just whack them in your pocket. They're just really cool to capture fun moments in like specific ways. I just love the fact that they all have little flashes on them as well. I think that's really cool. They just sort of pop open here. This one actually doesn't have any battery, but this one flicks open. You can just quickly get some cool shots. Such cool little cameras. I'd highly recommend getting something like this for your camera bag, just so that you can capture something a bit different of your friends, and just whenever you're out and about. They're just great piece of the gear. So I've just gathered basically a few accessories that I want to talk about that I kind of quite frequently carry with me in my camera bag. This here is a small rig magic arm with a clamp on the end. Whether you don't want to carry your tripod with you, I know that is the case sometimes, this thing can actually be a solution to this. You can basically just unscrew it here, and you can basically mount one end to like a pole or something. It's basically got a clamp on it, so you can just clip it on, put your camera in the other end, and just rest assured that your camera is going to be safe. The next thing I want to talk about here is this. This is a dust pump. I would always carry one of these with me whenever I'm out traveling. I do clean my sensor every now and then. I try not to change lenses too much, but having something like a rocket pump is a really good way of just blowing out any dust from your camera. Now, this is a Peak Design cuff wrist strap. Now, I don't really use these that much, I'll be honest. I don't really use camera straps at all. I just find them a little bit like annoying and just restraining. But this I use occasionally whenever I'm shooting rollers. Sometimes whether you're like hanging out the back of a car. And if you can have basically just one way of securing your camera to yourself, I would highly recommend this strap. It comes with these little toggles here, which basically just clip in. Now that's fully clipped in, that's not going anywhere. And you can just easily, it's got a quick release and you can just pull it out like that. So yeah, this Peak Design quick release cuff is just honestly, it's a good little thing just to have in your bag. And finally, we've got our filters. I kind of tend to keep my filters in this little pouch here. I know a lot of filters come inside their case of their own, but I kind of like to keep mine in this little thing here. We've got things like polarizers, so whether you're doing car photography, they're a really essential piece of gear to have to cut out all the reflections. I've got an ND filter in here, I've got a mist filter in here. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about in this little case here was these. Now, these are called step-up rings. Now, what these allow you to do is basically use a larger filter on a smaller size lens. So what I'd recommend doing is buying an ND filter, let's just say, for example, that would fit your biggest lens, i.e. 82mm, and therefore you can fit it on lenses which are smaller, i.e. 67mm, and not have to basically buy another filter and just end up with an absolute shit ton of filters everywhere. So yeah, step rings are honestly a game changer, and I'd highly consider getting them in your camera bag. So yeah, that pretty much summarizes all of the gear that I use day in, day out, whether I'm traveling or whether I'm doing a little bit of street photography. It kind of varies, but that covers pretty much everything that I use. Now, I hope that you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please feel free to drop a like rating on the video and subscribe if you're new here. That would really, really help me out. But yeah, with that all said and done, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.